Hello everyone. In today's video, we are going to go through and deep dive into the 5G voice EPS fallback services, or you can say voice fallback because we have two types of fallback in 5G, and this actually will cover everything you need to know about it. So here is the contents. First part, we are just going through quickly to scan what kind of 5G voice services we have in 5G for all 5G different architectures. Then we'll give a quick introduction about voice over NR. This will not go in deep details. Deep details will be covered in separate videos. Then we'll be discussing about the differences, fallback triggering methods, which you have it in 5G. We have two different fallback methods, with something called EPS fallback, which is mainly used now, and something called RAT fallback. I'll just explain the core difference between of them. Then we'll be covering the last 3 points here, the details about the EPS fallback, including signaling code flow end to end, and also what is the main main consideration, what deploying, what kind of issues we might face, and what kind of triggering methods and drawbacks and gains for each different method we have. Then at the end, we'll be ending by calculating the call setup time delay. So first, let's cover the 5G voice services part. So speaking about the 5G services, actually in 5G, the solution of the 5G services, voice services, is based on the architecture which we have in the network. So it's speaking about non-standalone, which is mainly relying about 5G core differences, about the 5G core, connect to the 5G core, will be for sure different compared to the other architecture which you have at option 2, option 4, and so on. So initially, if you check here, I have mentioned here something called OTT. So all these are kind of architectures, which is different architecture, option 3 till option 5. This is all supporting OTT, which is referred to over-the-top VoIP, voice over IP, and this is all being supported by all different kind of architecture. And the main reason for that this is only require a data connections, which can be either on EBS side, right? EBS connected to the 5G core network, or a BDU connection connected to the 5G core network. That's why it's being supported by different architecture, because it's mainly relying on the data connection. Now, speaking about, if you're speaking about option 3 only, if you're speaking about option 3 or option 3 family in general, which is 3, 3A, and 3X, this actually, if the user is not supporting VoLTE, so in this case, we'll be using the CS fallback. So the user will be redirected towards 2G and 3G network. And in case if you have a VoLTE, the user or device supporting VoLTE, so in this case, the voice services in this particular case for the 5G users will be using VoLTE over the 4G legacy. Now speaking about the other options, which is from option 2 till option 5. If you're speaking about option 2 till option 7 specifically, this is supporting voice over NR, because if you look into this part, this is like all having a 5G core network. So if you're speaking about option 2 and option 4, both of them, the 5G is being the master and is all the time connected to the core network. So this one will be supporting voice over 5G or voice over NR. And in this particular case, if even you have this, which is not really used in I didn't see it in any networks so far, but if you're speaking about the enhanced LTE, if it's connected to the 5G core network, still here we can have a voice over NR if you're assuming that the secondary leg, which is the 5G, is like supporting the speech. The speech packet is being transferred through the secondary leg or secondary node, which is the 5G. This is only the case of voice over NR, and the same for voice over LTE. Voice over enhanced LTE. This is actually supported in option 7 and option 5, because here they assume that we have the 4G only. For example, option 5 is connected to the core network, and here in the option 4 it will be same as what you explained in the option 7 in case of the speech packet is being transferred through the enhanced LTE. So this one can use voice over LTE, but forget about this part because this is not really used. What will be really seeing that the CS. So now assuming that, as you know, the most common solutions which you have it's option 2 and option 3X, right? And like you can't be using a mixed or whatever they call it, dynamic between both of them. Mixed, if you're speaking about 5G standalone, most of the network working with both solution together, option 3, option 2 plus option 3X. But in general, if you're speaking about 5G standalone, if the user is not supporting the voice over NR, here where the EPS fallback will be coming to the figure, and we have two different of types of fallback, something called EPS fallback. This means you are changing the core from 5G core to 4G core. And here there's called RAT fallback. This means simply means that you will stay connected to the same core, but you're just changing the right access technology. And this is, I'm going to explain the details between the core differences as an architecture point of view between both of them. So now, first, let's move to the 5G voice over NR services. Then we'll be covering like a high level about it. Then we'll be covering EPS fallback in details and right fallback in details. Let's move forward. Okay, now let's move to the second part, which is regarding the voice over NR, voice over new radio. Actually, what I'm trying to show here is like high-level introduction about the architecture or the network architecture for the 5G, along with interconnection with IMS. Just as a high-level introduction for it, like whenever you have a voice over NR network, you need to understand how the calls or how the SIP signaling and also even the RTB is being communicated into the network. So actually, initially, as you mentioned above here, the voice over NR and VoLTE rely upon something called IMS to start establishing the VoLTE core or voice over NR call, and this is all like responsible for this which is used for signal procedures between you and MS. If you know that the SIP is mainly responsible for the control plane for the IMS network, and we have also something called RTB. This is responsible for the user plane for the IMS network. So initially, I would just like want to introduce for you how the communication is being done between both 5G network and IMS. Assuming now this is like a part of the 5G network architecture, you have the users and you have the 5G node here. The first thing you need to do all the time, that the first part, whenever you're going to initiate a voice call, you need to first to establish your default peer, which is can be translated into two bars, right? The voice peer can be first 5G QQI5 and also, for example, 5G QQI9. This is the first thing need to be established, the 5G QQI. So this would be established through the UE, NR, SMF, and UBF. All these would be involved in the 5G QQI. After that, you need to register with IMS network. As you can see in this figure, the IMS network is this part. It's actually consisting of different nodes or different entities within the IMS. We call it IMS, but it's have different nodes. So how this is being done? The first thing the user need to register with IMS will be through something called proxy CSF. Actually, this proxy CSF acts as the first point of contact for the IMS. What it means by this? That means that any SIP messages need to be forwarded through the proxy CSF from the UBF towards the proxy CSF. And UBF is all the time connected to the internet or the IP multimedia system, which is, we call it usually DNN, and this is through the NSX interface. So actually the registration will be done through the UE towards the UBF. Then we will be doing the registration through the proxy CF. Proxy CF after that will start communicating CSF. As you can see here, we have the abbreviation. This is called interrogating CSF, and this is actually having a different main functions. Just let me highlight for the main function of that part. This is the main job of the interrogating CSF is to identify something called serving CSSF, and this serving CSSF is called like a CSF is referring to call session control function, and this serving CSF, after we register and after we identify, after the interrogating CSF identify the serving CSF will be having a direct communication with the proxy CSF to start like receiving and responding for all the SIP messages received from the user and so on, from the user towards the network. So the ICF initially will be communicating before identifying the serving CF. It will be communicating with ZDM, user data management, just to check whether if there is any registered CSF serving CSF already exists for the EU network and for the EU or not. If it's already exists, then it will be used as the serving CF. And if it's not, then it will identify the serving CF. This is one of the main function. And in case of the mobile terminating call, this will be acting as the first acting point. Also, once you receive a call from another users, so it will also identify the serving CSF, and again the communication will be starting. So this is the first part. And again, if you are speaking about the serving CSF, this is actually, as I mentioned, it's responsible for processing and responding to all the SIP messages. And it will be now after it's being identified, it will have a direct communication with the proxy CSF. This is the main idea about that part. But what I would like to highlight, that after we identifying this part, now we need to establish the 5G QQI1. So the proxy CSF will be communicating with the BCF in order to communicate with the SMF to start establishing the 5G KQI. 5G KQI1, which will be responsible for the subsequent. This will be responsible for the subsequent speech transfer, or the voice call in general, the speech calls. So this is the main idea about that part. And actually, during the VoLTE call, during the voice of an R call setup procedures, the CSF will interact with something called TAS, which is referred to telephony application server. And the interaction for this part, it will be responsible, that TAS is mainly responsible for providing something called end user applications, such for example, if you have a call conference, so the CSF need to communicate with the TAS to build this call conference, or even call forwarding, or even if you are speaking about call waiting and so on, this kind of end user applications is being handling by the TAS servers. After all this part responsible for the IMS control plane as being established successfully, now we will be moving through the speech, transferring the speech, which is referring to the RTB messages, which is referred to IMS user plane. So in that case, still the communication will be done through the proxy CSF, and this proxy CSF actually in general will be, if assuming that you have a call from the VoLTE user, from the voice over NR users to, for example, a CS domain user. So through the CSF domain, then BGSF is referring to a breakout gateway control function, will be communicating with something called MGCF, and this MGSF is referring to called media, I think media gateway control function as mentioned here. And this is actually MGCF plus IMMGW. IMMGW, this is IP multimedia gateway. This is actually, both of them is responsible for control and media interworking with the CS network domain. And also this is like, for example, the IMMGW, it's like responsible for interconnect between the IMS and CS domain, for example, to translate the messages from RTB to the CS circuit or the circuit switch domain in the network. And the same here, the BGCF will be communicating with the IPCF and TRGW in case if the call is between voice over NAN network to another voice over network. So in this case, you need to communicate with your peer IMS network. So the BGCF will be communicating with the IPCF and TRGW. And actually, this is again, it's responsible for inter-network with peer IMS as mentioned here. And this TRGW is actually an IB to IB gateway. And this is actually, if you hear all the time about this kind of responsibility, which entity is responsible for providing the necessary function for the coding, transcoding, like the coding, like how the coding is being changed and so on. This is actually responsible for the TRGW. And this is one of the main important functions also for the TRGW. And actually, this is one. Actually, I believe this is very important whenever you have something on software upgrade and this kind of entities, this might impact the coding in the network and so on. So this actually was a high-level introduction about how the call is being introduced between in the voice over NR for both IMS control plane and user plane. Now, actually, if you assume that you don't have a voice over NR, or the user is not supporting voice over NR, so in this case, as we mentioned in the previous slide, in this case, you need to fall back to the 4G network to start initiating a call over the 4G network. And here will come the next slide here. Let me show it to you now. And next slide here, as you can see, this is showing the mechanisms which you have it available now in the EPS fallback, and we have two mechanisms, something called EPS fallback and RAT fallback. Actually, if you look into the figure on the left, and again, in general, fallback is being triggered if any of those conditions being met. The UE is not supporting voice over NR capability, or the network is not supporting, or both of them not supporting, even having a poor coverage in voice over NR, and you need to fall back, for example, similar to the SRC from 4G to 3G, you need to fall back to the 4G network. So there is two mechanisms, as mentioned here. First one is called EPS fallback. I believe it's very clear from the name. EPS involved with packet core. This is usually connected for the 4G network. So in this architecture, for example, the 5G network is still connected to the 5G core, the 5G BTS, and 4G BTS is connected to the 4G core network, as mentioned here. So in this case, if the user is initiating a call in the voice over NR, and trying to initiate a voice over NR call, so the 5G KQI1 will be trying to establish an NR, and since it's not supporting somehow due to this previous mentioned reasons, so it needs to fall back to 4G. And since the core is different, so this means it needs to change the core network. That's why it's called EPS fallback. So in this case, it needs to make EPS fallback, and this is having a different methodology. We'll be discussing the next slide as well. So that's why they call it EPS fallback. But if you assume that you don't have the 4G now, is being connected, the 4G and BTS, now there is no anymore 4G core network, and it's being connected, the 4G is connected to the 5G core. So in this case, it's called RAT fallback, because you are just changing the access technology, but you are not touching the 5G core network. That's why they call it RAT fallback, radio access technology fallback, like something similar to the IRAT, for example, or whatever. But this is the main idea about that part, and actually the main idea that currently this, I believe, most of the network, if not all, is using this EPS fallback thing. So now moving forward, now let's move and check how this EPS fallback is being happening and what kind of triggering types we have for EPS fallback. So next here, as you can see here in this figure, we have EPS fallback triggering methods. As you can see here, this is, for example, assuming, so there is three methods actually, and some vendors even supporting four. For example, the first one is called measurement based on B1 measurement redirection. So this will be redirection based on measurement. So this will require B1 event. And you have blind redirection, and you have based on inter-rat handover or handover based on also B1 measurement, also handover measurement based also on B1 event. And sometimes some vendors might support handover, blind handover, not based on measurement. And now here I'm just listing the differences, and I will quickly also explain what kind of drawbacks and gains can be associated with each one of those. So initially, if you look into this figure, you have the EPS fallback trigger, as we mentioned. First one, for example, handover measurement based. I have highlighted here something in green and red. This is just the advantage. It's having less PS interruptions, that because you can have data forwarding during the handover, so they will have less interruptions for the BS session, so you can continue. If you're having, for example, multi-wrap, you're having a call ongoing and you have already a BS data was already doing download or whatever, so the interruption will be much less. However, it's having higher delay in case of EPS fallback, because you need to do measurement now, and you need to look into the to look for a specific target which will be achieving the B1 event. This is the main thing. Actually, when I mention high success rate, this is based on your network is being optimized or not. But what I mean by high success rate, that actually the measurement in general, if you have a measurement base, this is more accurate than the blind base, because you are searching for a specific target which is achieving a specific quality and level. So this one can guarantee that you are having a better success rate whenever you access to this target. This is the opposite, will be opposite in the blind redirection. And actually, this is having elaborate strategy. This is actually kind of complex strategy, because in this particular case for the handover, you need to have you need to define the frequencies. You need to have a different the neighbor cell, the definition per cell and the neighbors and so on. While the blind redirection only, for example, require only a frequency definition, no need for neighbor definition. This is the main difference between handover and blind in general. Also, there is something like, for example, assume that the user takes long time for the for the measurement for the handover, during the handover, to find this suitable target. So in this particular case, there is another parameter called protection timer. This protection timer, just like in case if the user didn't find a suitable cell to secure the call, it will be triggered blind redirection if this timer expired without achieving this part. And this can secure the user not to stay longer time, and also to reduce this call setup time delay for the EPS fallback and also voice over VoNR in general. Is the direction measurement base? It's actually similar to this one. But the main idea about this part, actually, it's having lesser delay compared to high delay, but compared to the measurement base. But I'm telling you, it will be almost the same. It's very few differences. So this case, actually, you can say it's almost the same. But still, there is high BS interruption, because the main idea of the high BS interruption is still you will be sending RRC connection release. So you release the connection, then establish the connection again. So this also will having higher BS interruption. But still, you can guarantee you will have a good frequency, because this is based on measurement. And this needs simplified planning, because it's only require a frequency definition, no need for the neighbor cell relation. And the blind redirection actually is similar for this one, but this one actually, the first part still having high BS interruption, because you are sending RRC connection release, which will include the frequency. Then you have this minimum delay, because you don't have any measurement anymore. So the time you stayed in the 5G network to measure for the frequencies of the 4G, this will be reduced, so you don't need this time. So it will have the best call setup time delay. So it will be almost, maybe you can say this around from previous experience, around 3 to 4 seconds. This will be around from 1.5 to 2 second maximum. So it's around, maybe like can say 30% better as a call setup time delay compared to the other two methods. And also it's having a simplified planning because it's only require frequency definition. And actually the main idea about it's having less success rate, because actually the main drawbacks about that part, even redirection in general, you cannot measure it directly from the RAN or SKPIs, because you need to have a counters from the MF side and the radio side in order to confirm the success rate. But this is, I believe, we can have different tools or whatever to measure the success rate from the RAN side. And actually, when I mentioned less success rate, because you cannot guarantee the quality of the targets. So maybe you'll be sending for a target with a bad quality or bad level because it's blind at the end. So in this case, it might impact your success rate in terms of accessing to the. And one of the points I need to highlight, whenever you need to improve the access, the EPS fallback time delay in general, this one can be done through that. For example, you have whenever you identify the frequency or the neighbors, you have something called voice priority. You can give, like, first of all, you can identify less number of frequencies to reduce the measurement, like for the frequencies, and also you can give a priority. For example, you have 2 or 3 frequencies, you can give higher priority for a specific frequency, also to improve or to increase the time, the reduce the time of the measurement, and also to give a specific frequency to be selected from in terms of blind reduction. This also. Moving forward, actually, this is actually a high-level introduction about EPS fallback for IMS voice services. And actually, this is high-level signaling view, as you can see here. Before going to the details, I would like to take you first through the high-level signaling point of view, how the call is being initiated and so on. And this is the source of the data for the 3GPP TS 23.502. So the first part here, the first thing will be done that the users will try to initiate a voice call, like even originating or terminating. And during that time, he will try to establish a video connection, which is quality of service flow, for example, 5G QKI 1. And this will be done through the UE till the IMS. So this will be sending SIP invite message. Once the IMS send the SIP invite message, now the users will start, it will start asking the other entities, for example, the SMF and the UBF, to initiate a BDU session modification to set up the quality of service flow for IMS voice, which is, for example, QSI1. Once this being done, this will be send a request it will be send a request to create 5G QQI1 toward the NG RAN, the 5G BTS. And the 5G BTS, during that time, it will check many things here. First of all, it will check the current configuration. Is it based on measurement or blind? If it's based, for example, in measurement, then it needs to deliver the RSU configuration for the users to start like allocating from the B1 events and so on. And the user can start doing the measurement report and sending the measurement report and so on. And this is actually optional. It's not like it can be blind as well. Also, this other thing, it will be check the capability. It will check the capability of the network, even the network, or for the users. And for example, if this capability is not, UE capability is not supporting the EPS fallback at all, then this will be rejected. Also, if the MF capability is being sent that they are not supporting, for example, blind EPS, EPS redirection, also this will be rejecting. And this radio condition part, it's related to the MR. For example, if you send to the user and the user never achieved the MR, this is also might cause into rejection, or it might measurement report, achieving the B1 event. So this is like will be checked being done from the NG RAN. And actually, in general, and this is actually, if this one done, if any of those not being achieved, especially for the UE capability and MF capabilities, in this case, the EPS fallback will be failing at all. It will not continue, even moving to the next step, which is 4 and 5. And if all these points has been achieved, so in all cases it will send rejection for this modification, and indicating that I would like to make IMS voice fallback because the user, for example, is not supporting the voice over NR and whatever, and also so I would like to, and he is capable for IMS for EPS fallback. So I would like to initiate EPS fallback. So this is what will be done. So to reject, make sending this video session modification, rejection called EPS fallback. After doing that, now it will be starting either the redirection or the handover based on your configuration. Once the handover redirection is being done, actually this can be handover, as I mentioned, or redirection with release. If it's done, now after going back to the 4G network, it will start doing tracking area update. This is tracking area update will be done to update the tracking area of the 4G network, and also to exchange the context, the UE context with, in case the 26 interface is being defined. If it's being defined and into 26 interface actually is between the MF and MME, so they will exchange the context of this particular user if the N26 interface is defined. If it's not defined, then the user will initiate a new attach in order to acquire the BDN connectivity again from scratch. So it will be a tracking area update or attach based on N26 availability. And after that, after this part completing, now it will start initiating in the VoLTE call. It will start initiating the key to set up the dedicated bearer, which is the QCI one. This actually was a high-level introduction about the signaling. And next slides, I will be going through the details for the handovers, for all the detailed signaling, end-to-end signaling, also for redirection, and we'll be ending by how to calculate the EPS fallback time delay. So let's move forward. Before going to the part for the code flow, end-to-end code flow signaling analysis or signaling overview, I would just need to take you into this point. Actually, if you remember in the previous slide at point 3, I highlighted that the BTS or 5G BTS or NG-RAN need to check several points, including the capability of the network or the UE, before taking the decision whether the user is applicable for EPS fallback or not. So as mentioned here, actually the NG-RAN will take the following points into account. The first one, first it will check the UE capability message. Whether it will confirm first if this one, for example, supporting the configured frequencies or not. The UE capability, for example, assuming you are configuring band 1800, so you should find the frequency under the internet parameters for the 1800 and so on for the other frequencies. So the first point that it will be checking the capability of the UE capability comparing to the configured frequencies. This is the first one. Second point, it will be checking the initial context setup request message sent by the AMF, and it will check this particular message, which is called redirection voice fallback. If this one is possible, then it will proceed with the next step. If it's not possible, it's mentioned as not possible. This means the network or the UE is not supporting EPS based on redirection. So in this case, the EPS fallback will fail, and the 5G will not allow to continue. The third point here, and this is in the registration, except in the initial registration from the UE, this is just highlighting to the network whether the N26 is available or not, which is usually called IWK. I have checked this one in the many different logs. I didn't find it, but this just I found it information on the internet, so I'm just sharing with you. But I couldn't find this one in the UE logs. And the last part here, this is related if you're assuming that you have already using measurement based, so the BTS 5G need to deliver this kind of configuration to the UE, which is related to the configured frequency, as mentioned here, and also the event B1 threshold. And this configured frequency can include the several frequencies, for example, 4 or 5 based on the network, based on your configuration. And it will be in the sequence which is being shown in the message here will be based on the voice priority. Assuming that here this carrier frequency 1850 and this one 700. So this means because this one coming first, this means the voice priority of this frequency is higher than this one. That's one's listed at the beginning of the RSA configuration message. So this was important message. Now let's go through the end-to-end signaling. So now here showing this part, and also this is the source of the data. I have combined it from different sources, but this is the main source of the data. So this is assuming this now you have the network and assuming the users in the idle mode. And the user would like to initiate now a voice over NR call. And he's not capable for voice NR, so he need to go EPS fallback. So this one I'm assuming for the handover based on measurement. And N26 interface is included or is supported. So the first part will be done here. The user will be sending service request, and this service request is just sending to initiate the voice over NR call. And well, because the user in idle mode, he needs first to establish the RSC connection setup and request and complete and so on. The process for all RSC connection setup. After that, the engineer is completed. It will initiate initial UE message, and this message usually contains several information, which is related to the STMZ and also the RSC establishment calls. The establishment of this one, calls of this one, and mainly this one is sending to request to establish the BDN connection for the default peer, and also for the 5G QQI5 and also 5G QQI9, for example. So once IMF receives this one, it will send back having the authentication NAS encryption negotiation between UE and MF and also the NGRAN. And once the authentication and encryption is done, then the initial context setup request will be sending from the MF. And this one, the main message of this one is to establish the mainly sent to establish JU context and IMS signaling. And actually, if you remember in the previous slide, I highlighted that there will be one cause here, which is called redirection for within this message, called redirection for voice EPS fallback, whether it's possible or not possible. If it's possible, then we can proceed with the remaining. If it's not possible, this means this one will be failing, especially if you're speaking about redirection. And here is just some information which can be included. It can request for UE security capabilities and also UE ready capabilities to check the capabilities of the user. The MF will be requesting the NGRAN to acquire the UE capability for this particular user. So what we'll do, after that message, here the NGRAN will request from the UE to send the UE capability query, and also there will be some security activation. And once the UE send back the security capability query, the init B will be responding. If the UE capability security first is matching with the NGRAN, then it will be sending initial context setup response, and this one to confirm that the BDN connection for the IMS, especially 5TQI5, has been established. And also, like, one of the things here, if any failure happen in this particular message, then this means the EPS fallback will be failing. And there can be several reasons. For example, the UE capability not matching with security for the NGRAN. It can be that due to no reply from the UE capability, due to there is no reply from the user, for example, for this particular messages. Also, maybe there is insufficient resources and so on. So it can be several reasons. But just the takeaway from here that if this message fail, the whole EPS fallback will be failing. So this one just to indicate that the UE session has been set up. After that, actually, the UE will initiate a SIP invite message towards tell the IMS just to inform the user that I need to establish a voice session, and this is for 5G QQI1. So once this done, the AMF now will be sending video session request modification, and this is requesting to modify the video session through adding the 5G QQI1. This is a thing. So this is instructing the NUB. So what will happen after that? The first point here will be done, as we mentioned also in the previous slide, that if it's because it's based on the measurement, so here will the NGRAN will be delivering the RRC configuration message, which include the B1 event thresholds and frequencies. And once it's done, once the user it will be start measuring the neighbor sites, and it will be starting reporting measurement report. If the measurement report achieve the B1 threshold, it will be reported. Once it's being reported, then the NGRAN will be replying for video session response, modification response with rejection, saying that the user need to request EPS fallback. We are going to request for EPS fallback because the user is not supporting voice over NR. And again, if any failures happens here, this can cause into this message not being delivered. So this one, it will be the message contents, it will be rejecting the video session modification and indicates that IMS voice fallback is in progress. This is the main thing here. It requested that I am not capable for voice over NR. I need to go for EPS fallback. So after that, what will happen? Handover required message will be sending from NGRAN to MF, and this is a handover required message contains several information such as init BID, target init BID, and also other information such as target and transparent container, and also inter-system handover indication, which is indicating this handover coverage, voice over NR, EPS fallback, and so on. And after that, here, this message is actually, as you can see here, video session context setup. Actually, the main idea of that part that just providing the MME capability to BGW and the SMF. And this is actually usually you will not find it in many of the signaling of many of the documents, but it's available in 3GPP. This one actually is just like the MF is updating both the UBF and BGWU and BGWC with the information about the MME capability for the BGW. It's sending for BGW and SMF. And actually, the MF selection in general for the MME, it's being based on the including considerations such as the load of the MME, also the geographic location and other conditions. This is just how the MF is selecting the MME. So once this one is being done, now what will happen? The MF will be sending reallocation request to the MME in order to transfer the context from the 5G to the 4G. As you can see here, the 5G forward core network forward, and after that, what will happen? That excuse me, after that, MME will be sending handover request. After receiving the relocation request, it will be sending handover request from the ETRAN, requested that now we need to prepare. There will be handover coming from. This is including the handover information that just preparing for this one, and this is replying in general for the handover required, which is being sent from the beginning. And after reallocation request being received, the handover request will be sending from the MME to the EUTRAN. Then this one will acknowledge that I have already, like I have the resources ready. I can now take the handover. So after that, there will be reallocation response. Then the MF will be sending handover command to NGRAN, requesting the NGRAN to ask the UE to go to the EUTRAN. So see what will happen. Actually, as you can see figure here, I just added this is optional. This is video session update context setup request and response. This is just in case if you have a data forwarding is being enabled, so you need to update the UBF, or in general the BGW. You need to update the BGW and the SHW regarding the context of the data session. So this is in case you need to open like a tunnel. You need to have a tunnel opening with this with BGW and the SHW in order if you have data forwarding or you need to have a data you need to forward. But in case if there is no data forwarding enabled, so this one will not be included. So after the relocation response has been received, you are expecting to see handover command from the MF to NGRAN, and this is requesting the NGRAN now that the target EUTRAN is being ready because it's already acknowledged handover. So the handover command will be sending here, including all the information of the handover. Then the NGRAN will be forwarding this handover, and this is actually will be covering all the information regarding the target frequency, the MME information, and these kind of things. So after that, the user will acknowledge the handover, that handover completed. Then because handover is completed, if data forwarding is we have data forwarding, then the data forwarding will be starting from shifting from serving gateway, for example, to from the UBF to the NGRAN. Then NGRAN will be the user now will be for start taking the packets from the SHW. So in general, just the packet forwarding just to make sure that the remaining data which is still available in NGRAN will be transferred to the EUTRAN through this particular user. So the user changing the path instead for the data, instead of being within the NGRAN, now it will be within the EUTRAN. So actually here, this is the data forwarding. After the handover has been completed, and this is including for sure the RATCH procedures. After the handover has been completed, now the tracking area update will take effect. Now the users need to update the tracking area for the 4G part. And after updating the tracking area update, again, as mentioned in the previous slide as well, the user will be establishing, will be asking to initiate dedicated bearer for QCI1. This will be done through the core network towards the users in order to start initiating the dedicated bearer and activate the QCI1 setup. And once the QCI setup is being done, then all the resources within the NGRAN need to be released. So the MF will be sending the NGRAN will be sending to LMF that I would like to release now the connection because I already received handover complete. So this means the user is not anymore available. I need to release whatever connection has been connected to this particular users, and the MF will be confirming the U context release through U context release command complete. And this is the end-to-end procedures for what you are expecting to have during the PS handover procedures. And this is exactly the same for PS handover and EPS Fallback for sure. It's exactly the same. But the main idea here that the only part you might not find, it's related if there is no data forwarding enabled within the voice over NAR. Now going to the next one, which is related to the 5G to EPS redirection. It's actually exactly the same. Exactly the same. But just the main differences will be at this particular area, and also this data forwarding thing is not here, is not included. But instead of handover procedures, now it will be just like RRC connection released directly from NGRAN, including the frequencies of the UTRAN. So the user will be start measuring the frequencies, and once this one is being sent to the users, now the engineer band again will request to release the UE context release request from the MF. Then this, if the release is completed, this will be sending. This is just a request from the GNR to MF. Then this is a command. This is then complete, acknowledging that the resource has been released from the NG run side. So now, after the users complete accessing to the UTRAN, it will be start doing tracking area update, and after the tracking area update again, it will establish 6i1. This is the main idea. Now the last part here in this video, actually, that how to calculate the type of EPS fallback time, like how long the time it is going to take. This is actually it's end-to-end signaling, assuming that you have SEB invite 100 trying till the ringing phase, and this is the originating here in the left, and here is the terminating in the right, and here is the procedures for the handovers and also tracking area update. This is exactly the same as we have just explained, but we just considering now the same in both originating and terminating. So the first message will be sent SEP invite message. Usually, if this one usually should be from the service request, because sometimes service request might be before the SEP invite, depending on the users and the idle node or not. So you can start from the SEP invite till 180 ringing to calculate the complete EPS fallback time. As you can see here, you just need to subtract the time from this 180 ringing minus 7 byte. So this will give you the full EPS fallback time. In case you would like to calculate the time during the measurement phase or whatever in the 5G side in general, so what you need to do, you need to calculate from the 7 byte till the handover request command. Once the handover request has been sent and the request and command has been sent, then in case you can calculate the 5G time. And the 4G time for sure will be starting from the tracking area update once the handover has been completed till the 180 ringing. So it will be from the tracking area update, or other words we can say starting from the SEB, because once the user go to back to the 4G, you need to decode the master information block and system information. So you can just like from the master information block retrieval, once the user get it, till the 180 ringing, and now you can calculate the 4G time as well. And as the overall thing that usually from practical experience, it can be less or higher, but this is, you can say, as overall average. It's like for the redirection with release and handover based on measurement both, it's around 3 to 4 seconds. And the redirection release with blind redirection is it's almost half, 1 to 1.5 seconds, as this is as overall average. And that's all for the today's session. I hope if you like the contents to share it with your friend, and just to subscribe to the channel and press like and comments. Thank you. See you next session.